Okay, Brianna, what are we making today?
We are making a DIY game console.
Let's have a look. The MAKERbuino DIY Game Console. This is one of the bigger builds that we've taken on.
Yeah, so it'll probably take a long time.
Yeah, it's supposed to take about 4 hours. So you want to walk me through some of the basic components here, starting with the motherboard? Start with the motherboard.
This is the motherboard, and this is the cases to put on the motherboard when we start building it.
Okay, so the motherboard holds all of the components, correct?
Together, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so that's where we're going to be soldering all the components. And what do we have over here in the bins?
So this is a switch.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like the switch case, like you can put it on there.
Okay. So those form the button switches that you use to play the game, right?
See?
Okay. Yep. Okay. So what about right there? What do we have there?
This is the brain.
That's the brains. It's called the microcontroller. That's an Arduino. I believe it's an Atmel 328 for the geeks out there. Okay.
Yeah.
What else do we got in there?
We have this.
The micro SD card. Okay, that's where we're going to store the games that we're going to play on this little game console.
Yep.
Okay, and what do we have up there?
This is the battery.
The battery. It's a lithium polymer battery. Okay.
And this is the speaker.
Okay, that's the speaker.
It can also be magnetic, but...
Well, magnet's part of a speaker,
yeah.
Right? And what's in that upper left hand?
This is the screen. We can't do without a screen,
Yep.
can we?
Yep, that's a Nokia 5110 screen for those who are into that sort of thing. So a little note to you young builders out there, go get one of Mom's cupcake pans. It's great for sorting out components, okay? So, Brianna, what are some of the tools that we're going to need to build the MAKERbuino?
Well, we're going to need these.
Okay, what are those?
These are
Diagonal
cutters. These are diagonal cutters.
Okay, what else?
And this is a soldering iron, very hot.
Soldering iron, okay. So what part of the soldering iron can you hold and what part can't you hold?
You can hold this part and this part.
Okay.
Maybe, well, it would be hard to hold it right here.
Mm-hmm.
But kids out there who were smaller, do not hold this metal piece.
Yeah. It's always best to have a parent show you how to use a soldering iron and to supervise you the first few times you use it, so make sure you know what you're doing.
Yes, if you're like little ones.
Okay. So what else? We have some screwdrivers, I think, back there,
yes,
right?
Screwdrivers.
Okay. And what's that device over there?
That
Is a multimeter.
is a multimeter.
Okay, and that's used for measuring voltage, resistance, and current.
Yes.
Okay? All right, so you ready to get started?
Yep.
All right, let's go. Brianna's going to show you guys how to solder. What's the first step, Brianna?
You grab the soldering iron.
Mm-hmm.
The next step, you wipe it.
Wipe the tip, and then you do what?
Put the soldering
The solder.
on the soldering iron.
That's called tinning the soldering iron. Just a little bit of solder to help things flow. There you go. That's plenty. Okay, now you put the soldering iron down on the pad, and then you apply solder directly to the pad. There you go. And sometimes that one didn't quite turn out, so she's going to go back and fix it. There you go.
And then we do it again.
And you step and repeat. Okay. Okay, very good. Okay, the next step's calling for the installation of a 10 kilo ohm resistor, and you can tell the value of a resistor by the little colored bands on the resistor. There's a color code, and the chart with that color code comes with the kit, but you can also hook it up to our little multimeter here. So if you hook the leads up to the resistor, you can measure the resistance value on your multimeter. Brianna, go ahead and hook it up. and you can see that it's reading out as 10.05 kilo ohms on the display. That's exactly what we need. So that's what we're going to install next. Okay, so we just installed the crystal and some capacitors, and now we're going to install a couple of slide switches. Brianna, what are these switches for?
These are for, it's like turn on and off a switch at your house.
Right, so it's for turning on and off the device and for muting the volume. So can you give us a little shot of the switch there? Just a little tiny slide switch. Okay, we're going to install those next. So we're getting ready to install some electrolytic capacitors. Those are different than the ones that we installed previously. What's different about them, Brianna?
What is different about them is that they have this thing, which is the minus side.
Mm-hmm.
And usually on a circuit board, there is a minus side. And you can tell, because on the circuit board, they have a lighter side colored in.
Okay, so what you're saying is you can't just put it in any old way.
No.
You have to put the minus sign on the minus side of the circuit board and the plus side of the capacitor on the plus side of the circuit board.
Yeah.
And that's common of a lot of electrical components. The leads are not interchangeable. You have to make sure that you install them properly.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so what are we installing next, Brianna?
We are installing a transistor and voltage regulator.
Okay, so the interesting thing about these guys, let's show them up close, is that they look exactly the same, but they're not. They're completely different devices. So the only way you can tell is by the markings on the case. And you're going to need a magnifier to do that, okay? So the 3.3 volt regulator is going to take the battery voltage and converts it down to a voltage that's going to be used by the motherboard. And the transistor is either acting as a switch or an amplifier, okay? Now the interesting thing about transistors, just like the electrolytic capacitors, is that you have to install them in the correct way, otherwise you'll damage the device or it won't work. Yes. Okay, you ready to get them installed?
Yep.
Okay.
Let's get started.
All right. Okay, so Brianna's got a head-worn magnifier on, and this is really a helpful device for when you're getting ready to solder on a very small circuit board like this. So she's going to go ahead and solder the transistors for us now. Go ahead, Brianna. She's tinning the iron right now. Okay.
Now time for the next one. Now time for the other three. Okay.
Okay, so what are we going to put on next, Brianna?
We're going to put on the screen.
The screen, that's the fun part, right?
We can't go without a screen.
Because it would be what?
Boring.
Boring, right? Okay, so where does the screen go?
It goes somewhere right here.
There it goes. Just snaps right into place, and then we're going to solder it on, right?
Yep.
It's coming together.
Yeah.
Okay, what are we doing now, Brianna?
We are putting in the brains of the game console.
Yeah, the microcontroller chip, right?
Yep.
So, so this is a big IC, and it's got lots of pins on it, and it's kind of important that you carefully install that into the socket that we soldered earlier. And you have to kind of straighten out the pins before you do that, otherwise they won't go in there very easily. You have to be careful not to damage it. So that's what we're going to be doing next. It's kind of hard to show on screen, so we won't be showing that, but we will be installing it. And there is the microcontroller installed in its socket And we're getting really close to doing a power on test here. Okay, so we're getting ready to install the battery and do the first power on self test, right, Brianna? Okay, plug in the battery.
Yay! Do, 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 do.
Okay, turn it over.
Now wait for the precious moment.
And get it turned around here. Okay. And
You need to turn this switch on right
yep,
here.
turn the switch on.
Ta-da!
Okay, so we're getting the screen has come on and says adjust contrast. Now, that's not what the instructions show that the screen was going to show at this point, so we're not quite sure if we have a problem or not. So, what do the Mythbusters always say, Brianna?
Failure is always an option.
Yeah, and we're not going to hide anything on our channel, are we?
Never!
Okay, so we're not sure if we're doing, if we've done everything right or not, but we'll find out. What are we doing now, Brianna?
We are going to install potentiometers.
Okay, let's have a look. Those two little round things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what is a potentiometer, Brianna?
A potentiometer is something that controls the volume or the brightness of the screen.
Right, so they're variable resistors, and when we turn them, we can do different things. In this case, it's used for controlling the volume and the screen brightness.
So this is going to be fun. You ready?
So we've been installing a lot of components, lots of more resistors and capacitors and some things called headers. And we've come to another new component called a diode. And a diode is a device that controls the flow of current. It only allows current to flow in one direction. And so like many of our components, it's polarity sensitive. It has a plus side and a minus side called the anode and the cathode. Can you show us the diode, Brianna?
This is the diode.
Okay. And which side is the cathode?
The black.
The black ring on it. So you got to make sure you install that on the circuit board in the appropriate way.
Yes, or else it will probably mess up.
Right. We'll let out the magic smoke. Okay, so what have we done since the last update, Brianna?
We have done
The headers.
the headers,
Okay.
the headphone,
The headphone jack.
and this, which is a USB port for charging.
So it's got a USB jack on and a little chip on there for charging the battery, and that's going to get installed onto the board right there.
Next, we're going to do that.
Yeah, next. Okay. Okay, so where are we at now, Brianna?
We are at the point where we just did the buttons.
Well, we've just attached them to the board. We haven't soldered them yet, right?
Well, yeah.
Okay. Starting to look like a real game console, isn't it?
And Dad was wrong about the buttons.
Yeah, so we thought we were missing a button, but it turns out the two of them were kind of connected together, and I didn't notice that. So we have all the buttons we need.
Yes.
So we're going to solder the buttons next. Okay, so we soldered all the buttons, and then we hooked up the battery, and what did we do then?
We finally got it to the screen.
Yeah, so we did another power on test, and we finally got to the screen that we were expecting to get earlier. So it looks like everything's working okay after all. We did have to press a few buttons to get there.
Yes, that's true.
All right, so we're continuing with our build.
Yep.
Okay, we just finished installing the speaker and all the buttons. We hooked up the battery, and we're going to do another power on test. Okay, you ready, Brianna?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead. And there we go. That's the setting we're looking for. The left control controls the backlight, and the right control is the volume control, which we're not testing the volume yet. And there's a power on self test. If you press the A button, that'll take us into the, yep. We can do a checkup wizard. Okay, so go ahead and press the A button again. And that shows us the contrast. We can adjust the contrast. Press the A button again. And now we can check out all the buttons and make sure they're working. So press the left button. The left button lights up. The right button. The right arrow lights up. The up and down arrows. Up, down. Okay, and then the B button over here. And then the C button over there. Okay, all the buttons are working. So we're on to final assembly. Okay, so before we begin the final assembly, we are going to install the SD card and see if we can load some games from the SD card onto the GameBoy. Okay, you ready to do that, Brianna? Mm-hmm. Okay. So turn the device on. Okay. Now press the C button. And that should be saying flash loader. Yep.
Don't turn off.
Don't turn off. So it says it's going to take about 30 seconds for it to load, and it's going to load the games, and there they are. Okay, there's 8 different games loaded on there, so it looks to me like it's functional. All right, so let's do the final assembly so we can play.
Yep.
We're almost done with final assembly. There were a few difficult sections in the final assembly. We had to remove the speaker in order to route the wires and then reinstall the speaker on the back panel. We had a little trouble getting the front panel on, but we're just about there. And now Brianna's going to put the final touches on it. She's going to put the screws into the
These things.
into the spacers on the front panel.
These are very tiny.
And I'll let her finish that up and we'll come back and fire it up. Okay, we've completed final construction and it's time to see if we can play a game on our new MAKERbuino. You ready, Brianna? Mm-hmm. All right, let's give it a shot. Okay, let me get down there. Okay.
I'm just going to press this button right here.
Yeah. Oops, you just paused it. There you go.
Doing a new technique here.
A little easier to play when you're holding on to it, but for camera purposes we need to play it flat on the table. Alright, pretty cool, huh? Alright, so I had to tear Brianna away from playing her new handheld video game so we could make this final summary. So what do you think, Brianna?
I think we did a great job, and I think it's an awesome game console.
Pretty good game console, huh? So how would you rate the difficulty of the project? Is it a beginner project, an intermediate project, or an advanced project?
I think it would be like an intermediate.
I tend to agree. I don't think this is for first-time builders. It has a lot of soldering, small pieces, a lot of small pieces that you have to put together. But the instructions are very, very clear, and for the most part, they were spot on. So I think that I think it's something that anyone with a little bit of build experience could do. What about the wow factor, the fun factor?
I think it's a fun factor.
Oh, okay. You think it's got good fun factor?
Uh-huh.
All right. All right. Say goodbye.
Bye.